Hello, I'm Game Retainer, and in this video I'll be going over 50 tips and tricks for 7 Days to Die. Some of the tips will be aimed at new players, while others are geared towards those who already know their way around the game. There are timestamps below, so if you want to skip back and forth, feel free. But with that said, let's jump straight in. We're going to start off with an obvious one, and that is to make a bone knife on day 1. All you need is 5 bones and you can craft yourself a knife. The bone knife doesn't cost a lot of stamina to use, making it a pretty decent early game weapon. It also causes bleed damage, allowing you to cause damage over time. Knives are also great for harvesting animals and various corpses. They give you 100% of the harvestable materials, while other things like axes and various weapons give you considerably less. Prioritize finding, buying or crafting a cooking pot. You can't cook without a cooking pot. This means that you can't even boil water. Be sure to look underneath sinks, inside dishwashers, and kitchen cupboards, and kitchen countertops as well. If you are desperate, then chances are Traderect will have a cooking pot for sale. It won't be cheap, but it's better than starving or going thirsty. You can also craft a cooking pot in a forge, but you will need to read a total of 5 Forge Ahead magazines before you unlock the ability to make the actual forge itself. Next is to find a wrench. While it's not as important as a cooking pot, using a wrench is a great way to make money during a playthrough. Wrenches have a higher chance of spawning underneath sinks, in toolboxes, and work in stiff tool crates. Consider making Minibike handlebars for some extra money. Once you've read 20 vehicle adventure magazines, you'll unlock the ability to craft Minibike handlebars. Keep in mind that you'll need to have a workbench in order to craft them, but they are a very good way of making money. All of the components needed to make Minibike handlebars can be gathered just by breaking down cars with any salvage tool. You can sell a total of 3 full stacks of Minibike handlebars to each trader during a trade cycle, making them a great way to get rich pretty quickly. If you want to maximize the amount of money you get from traders, then there are a few things that you can do. Magnum Enforcer 4 gives you a 5% discount while holding a Magnum. The Enforcer sunglasses and the Ranger hat give you up to a 20% boost to prices when buying and selling items to traders. The Preacher hat also gives you a boost of up to plus 20%, but that's only when buying goods. The number will vary depending on the armor piece's tier, but the better the tier, the better the discount. The Cigar mod gives you a 10% boost when buying and selling. Grandpa's Awesome Sauce can also be useful, as it does give you a 10% boost to bartering for 3 minutes. Crafting one of these can be a little costly, so I usually just buy them from traders or vending machines. And as of a recent update, this boost is now considerably cheaper to buy than it used to be. Also, keep an eye out for sugar butts, because these give you an extra 10% to your bartering for 6 minutes. These can also be purchased from vending machines. You will also find them in various loot containers from time to time, and if you're lucky, maybe traders will sell them every now and again. Pumpkin Cheesecake also gives you a 5% bartering boost, but that only applies when buying items. The last thing you can do is invest points in better barter. When maxed out, you'll get a 25% discount to all goods that you buy, and a 25% increase to all goods that you sell. I do also want to mention the Daring Adventurer, since that does give you more dukes for completing missions, and it does give you access to better trade items. The next tip is to throw down a storage chest outside trader settlements. I'll be honest, this is something that I didn't bother with for a long time, but now it's something that I do every playthrough. Whether you want to keep all of your price boosting items inside the box or just fill it with stuff that you want to sell, having a box where you can offload trader goods comes in very handy. Also, since traders will only buy up to 3 stacks of an item per trader cycle, it's good to have a box where you can just throw in your excess items and sell them at a later date. If you are playing on a random gen world and you're having a hard time finding the supercorn recipe, then there is one thing you can do. If you're not lucky enough to find the recipe inside loot containers or get it as a mission reward, or you can't find a Bob's Balls and Carl's Corn, then the Supercorn recipe is one of the options that you'll be given when you hand in the Kill a Cop challenge. This challenge will take a while to complete as you will need to kill 50 cops, but if you can't find the recipe in any other way, then it's better than not having it at all. Maxing out the Daring Adventurer will allow you to take 2 rewards upon completing a mission. For the most part, mission rewards aren't great, however, being able to grab 2 mediocre rewards instead of 1 helps take the sting out of the terrible rewards. Also, to revert back to the previous entry, you do get some nice rewards for certain challenges like the Kill a Cop challenge, so if you can take 2 rewards for that, then great. Next is to never break down a cop car. Cop cars contain some pretty good loot. After you've opened up a cop car, either with a lockpick or if you're feeling brave by breaking the car open, grab the loot and just leave the car intact. By doing this, when the loot respawns, you can just pop open the unlocked car and grab more loot. Just to clarify for new players, if you do smash open a cop car, then a bunch of tough enemies will spawn, so it is best to use a lockpick. Never pass up on a treasure map. Treasure maps contain top tier loot. This includes things like ammo, silver, gold, and usually a hefty amount of dukes, and maybe even a weapon. If you want to get the best out of a treasure map, then read it when you are deep inside the wasteland. The wasteland gives you a nice boost to your loot stage. This helps to increase the quality of the items you find inside the container. To go a little further, you should also bring along the Treasure Hunter's Head mod for an additional boost to your loot stage, the Rogue Hood, preferably tier 6, and maybe invest a couple of points into the Treasure Hunter skill. I've mentioned in previous videos how opening up birds' nests, closing them and then breaking them down gives you extra feathers, but this trick works for more than just birds' nests. Containers like trash bags and cardboard boxes can be broken down for some extra resources. Just be sure to open up the container before you break it down, otherwise you won't actually get the contents. Speaking of trash bags, there's no such thing as a bad loot container. Every now and then you'll find something really nice inside a seemingly crappy container. So whether it's a dumpster, an old box or a mouldy backpack, it's still worth searching. If you don't have a drone or a vehicle with lots of storage slots, then you'll end up filling your inventory pretty quickly. Placing down a storage box outside of the boundary of a POI will allow you to keep hold of all your precious loot. This leads me to my next point. Try not to place a chest inside a POI that you're clearing, because if you forget about the chest and take another mission at the same location, then the storage chest and its contents will disappear. That is, unless you've placed down a land claim block. For those who don't know, land claim blocks serve a handful of purposes. They prevent zombies from spawning within the boundaries of the block. They stop non-allied players from placing down blocks inside your little zone. If you're building a base inside an existing POI, then a land claim block actually takes that location out of the trader missions, so you won't accidentally refresh the POI and delete all of your hard work. Finally, a land claim block gives you the ability to pick up various workstations, like workbenches and forges. They will need to be empty before you can pick them up though. Consider staying relatively close to a trader during the early stages of a playthrough. Whether you want to take over an existing POI or build your own base from scratch, it's a good idea to stay pretty close to Trader Red, especially early on. If you want to grind missions, then it helps if you aren't a couple of kilometers away from your nearest trader. Number 17 is to work towards completing challenges. I'm not just talking about the beginner challenges here, although they are worth doing, but some of the more advanced ones, like the Kill Zombie challenges, tend to give you a pretty decent amount of XP, and, as mentioned with the Kill a Cop challenge, some good rewards too. If you find a Burning Shaft mod, then it's worth using. Not only can it inflict burn damage on enemies, but it's also a pretty good source of light. This is ideal if you haven't yet found a head torch. Breaking the bottom couple of rungs of ladders will help keep zombies from getting up to you. This can be good in a pinch if you need to get away from a wandering horde. Also, when building a base, if you create a path for the zombies to get up to you, you can use ladders at the back to give yourself an alternative exit. This just gives you a little out in case you get overrun during Horde night. There are a handful of POIs in the game that are always worth looting. These include the Book Barn, regular Crackerbook stores, that's not including the Crackerbook HQ, the Cracker Cafe stores, and Working Stiff tools. If you're struggling to find legendary parts, then keep an eye out for Savage Country stores, because you can walk away with a handful of legendary parts with relative ease. Containers such as garment bags, clothing piles, and clothing shelves have a pretty decent chance of containing legendary parts. While you will find these in various POIs, Savage Country stores are filled with clothing related containers. Try to avoid drinking regular water. After reading just a handful of Cooking Weekly magazines, you'll be able to craft drinks like goldenrod tea and red tea. These drinks offer more hydration than standard water, and they give you temporary buffs, like an increase to your stamina regeneration speed. You can highlight tree stumps during the early stages of a playthrough. One of the challenges you can complete is to gather 5 honey. If you highlight this challenge, then you'll see a little icon above nearby stumps, making it easier to spot them. Unfortunately, this only works until you've gathered 5 honey. The next tip is to consider starting a farm early. Farming is a great way of making sure that you don't go hungry. Since you only need to read 20 farming magazines to unlock all the seed recipes, with the exception of the supercorn recipe, it doesn't take long to max it out. Just be sure to put a couple of points in living off the land and also invest in the farmer's outfit and gloves. Consider making a drop chest at your base. Time management is key in 7 Days to Die. During the early stages of a playthrough, you might not want to venture out at night, so you'll need to make the most out of each day. Don't waste daylight by sorting out items at your base. Just throw everything in a drop box and sort it out at night. Walk backwards while fighting. Getting stunned is never good. If you stand still while fighting, then you'll get hit more. With each hit, you run the risk of getting stunned. Not only that, but if you stay still, then you may end up getting surprised by zombies sneaking up behind you. As long as you keep moving, you are a tougher target to hit. Pack Mule used to be a relatively weak perk, but now it's one of the best skills in the game to invest a few points in. Before the 2.0 update, Pack Mule increased your carry capacity. While it still does do that, it now gives you a percentage chance to avoid taking any damage from an attack. Unfortunately, you can still suffer injuries when this skill is triggered, but you won't take any physical damage from the attack itself. Also, just a quick note, the sound made when this skill activates is pretty annoying, so just keep that in mind. The next tip is pretty niche, but it may come in handy for certain players. Containers such as mailboxes and refrigerators will remain permanently open once they've been emptied. To prevent this from happening, make sure to keep at least one item inside the container before closing it. During the early stages of a playthrough, don't be picky when it comes to armor. If you find a piece, just stick it on, even if it's not particularly useful for your build. Also, when making the primitive outfit, which you should do on day 1, go ahead and make the full set of primitive armor. While you don't get any special skills for wearing a full set of primitive armor, you do get a nice reduction to the damage you take, which is always nice. Upgrade blocks from the bottom up. Structural integrity is important. If you upgrade from the top, then you run the risk of your entire base collapsing. Speaking of building, keep an eye on the colours of the blocks that you're placing. If the shading around the block is a light white colour, then it's structurally sound. However, if it starts turning yellow, then it's getting weaker. If the block turns red and you still decide to place it down, then the structure you're building will collapse, and it will collapse back to the nearest block that is structurally sound. Cops can't spit through scaffolding ladders, but you can shoot and melee attack through them, making them perfect for Horde Nights. Spikes can be very helpful during Horde Nights, however, zombies that are killed by spikes don't award you with any XP. Me personally, I tend to use spikes to block off areas that I don't want zombies going to, helping to funnel them towards the path that I've laid out for them. Regular mushrooms spawn most often inside the burnt forest. You do tend to find them in clumps within grassy patches, so keep an eye out for those. That said, there are a few POIs which have plenty of mushrooms no matter what biome they're in. Judy Witch has lots of mushrooms in the basement, and unsurprisingly, the Mushroom Mining Company has plenty inside there too. There are some other POIs that will have a few mushrooms lying around, but not as many as the two I've just mentioned. Speaking of mushrooms, you can plant them anywhere. They don't need to be placed inside farm plot blocks, and they don't actually need light to grow either. Up next, zombies aren't smart. If you place down a large pile of spikes, then zombies will not hesitate, they'll just walk straight through the spikes to get to you. As mentioned, you don't get any XP for spike kills, however, if there are too many zombies, then making a quick patch of spikes can be a good way of thinning the herd a little bit. Now for a super obvious one, but if you are new then there's no real way of knowing this, never drive during Horde nights. Hopping in a vehicle during a blood moon will spawn in waves of spitting vultures that cause lots of damage. They can even physically lift your vehicle off the ground. If you hit a plague spitter as it's summoning insects, then the hit causes the animation to break, preventing the plague spitter from spitting bees, or insects, or whatever the hell they are. Never pass up on cloth, especially early on. Beds, curtains, clothing piles, they are all great for gathering cloth. Cloth is needed to make bandages, so even if you have a couple of stacks of cloth at your base, you still don't have enough. Always grab more. The same is true for glue. Always keep an eye out for it. Once you have a few dew collectors placed, you can increase your glue output with either bones or supercorn, but even then, having enough glue for your crafting needs is a constant challenge. If you make a base inside an existing POI, provided that the POI isn't a tier 0, then you'll get a boost to your loot stage. This is great for Horde nights as it gives you a little boost to the quality of loot that you'll find in enemy loot bags. The higher the tier of POI you're in, the higher the boost to your loot stage. Keep in mind that this boost to your loot stage only lasts for as long as you are within the boundaries of the POI. Make sure that your health is above 80% before entering the desert. Roaming vultures will only attack you if your health is below 80%. That said, vultures that are a part of a POI will attack you regardless. If you want to lock slots in your inventory, then you should start at the bottom. When you pick up an item, it goes in the first available slot. If you lock slots from the top down, then you run the risk of accidentally putting some random loot inside a lock slot instead of the item that you want to keep. When you're doing buried supplies missions, dig out the circle before starting the mission. After activating the mission, each time the circle shrinks, there's a chance for enemies to spawn. However, if you dig out the circle before starting the mission, then you can pretty much just grab the loot and go straight away. Grown crops weigh more than planted seeds, so if you're building a farm on a roof, then make sure that it can take plenty of weight. Otherwise, you run the risk of your farm collapsing. Next, you can use a door to limit the flow of zombies inside POIs. If you're struggling to cope with a number of zombies, then close the nearest door. Make sure that you have a repair tool on hand and some resources, and then you can casually repair the door and quickly open and close it, letting only a couple of zombies in at a time. Painkillers offer the largest immediate boost to health gain. Things like medical bandages and first aid kits only heal a couple of HP per second. Painkillers, however, they give you 40 HP pretty much instantly. It will increase your thirst level, but if it means you get to live to fight another day, then it's definitely worth it. If you want to finish off magazine sets faster, then you can use Nerd Armor and Intellect Mastery Rank 3. These give you a chance of earning 2 points when reading a magazine instead of the usual 1. The next one is an obvious one, but it is very easy to forget. Always keep your weapons reloaded. I'm sure that most players will have ended up in a situation where you're getting overrun by zombies but you've forgotten to reload your weapon. Getting into the habit of keeping your weapons reloaded can really help in tough situations. Also, whenever you modify a weapon, you unload it too, so make sure you reload your weapon after you've modified it. The final tip I have is to play your way. If you enjoy an easy ride, turn down the difficulty. If you want to build a lavish base, go for it. One of the best things about this game is that there are so many different ways you can play, so do what best suits you. But that's it for this one. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you'd like to see another video like this, then let me know down below. Also, if you have any tips that you'd like to share, feel free to share them below. But once again, thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one.